Imagine sitting at your father's hospital bedside, tubes and monitors keeping him alive. When suddenly, out of nowhere, someone storms in and tries to shut it all off. And not just anyone, but your father's HOA president. Yes, you heard that right. The same woman who spends her days nitpicking lawn heights and mailbox colors decided she had the authority to end a man's life. This isn't just a story about a neighborhood feud. It's about how far one self-proclaimed enforcer of petty rules went and how hospital security and the police had to intervene before tragedy struck. Let me take you back to where it all started. My dad had been in the ICU for a week following a sudden heart attack. It was touch and go, but doctors were optimistic. He was sedated, hooked to life support, and every beep of the monitors was a reminder that modern medicine was keeping him alive. For our family, those beeps were hope. For someone else, apparently, they were an inconvenience. Enter Karen, the president of our HOA. If you've ever dealt with a Karen, you know they thrive on control. She lived across the street from us for years and seemed to have an issue with everything. Our fence, our driveway, even the way my dad parked his truck. But none of that prepared me for what she would do in that hospital. It started innocently enough, or so I thought. On the second day my dad was in the ICU, I noticed Karen pacing outside the hospital room. At first, I figured maybe she was visiting someone else. But when she caught my eye, she smiled. That smug, tight-lipped grin, the kind she'd use when handing out HOA violation slips. My stomach dropped. "Your dad's on life support?" she asked, as if it was her business. "Yes," I said, keeping it short. I didn't owe her anything. "Well, don't you think that's unnecessary?" Her tone was sharp, judgmental, like she was talking about someone leaving holiday lights up too long. I thought I misheard her. "I mean, who says something like that?" I brushed it off, assuming it was just Karen being Karen. But then she kept showing up every day, standing outside the ICU wing, pretending to be waiting for someone, watching. I didn't know it then, but she was planning something. Something far worse than HOA fines or nasty letters, something that would shake our entire family to its core. And when she finally made her move, it wasn't subtle. It was loud, violent, and it had the entire hospital in chaos within seconds. By the fourth day in the ICU, I knew something was wrong. Karen wasn't just lingering anymore. She was lurking. Every time I walked out to grab coffee or step into the hallway, there she was. Sometimes she pretended to scroll her phone. Other times, she'd strike up awkward small talk with nurses, but her eyes were always darting toward my dad's room. I tried to ignore her. After all, stress makes you paranoid. Maybe she really did have a friend in the ICU. But then, one of the nurses pulled me aside. "Do you know that woman?" she asked quietly. "Yeah," I sighed. "She's our HOA president." "Why?" "She keeps asking questions about your father's condition. Things like how long he'll be on life support, whether the family has given permission." It's strange. Strange was an understatement. My dad's health was none of her business. And yet, here she was, prying like she had a right to know. When I confronted her later that evening, she didn't even deny it. She folded her arms, lifted her chin, and said, "Someone needs to make sure resources aren't being wasted. These machines are expensive, and if he's not going to recover, the responsible thing would be to let him go." I was floored. My dad was fighting for his life. And this woman, who wasn't family, wasn't a doctor, wasn't even a friend, was acting like she had a vote in whether he lived or died. "Stay away from him," I snapped. "You have no authority here." But if you know anything about Karens, you know that no only fuels them. Over the next 2 days, her behavior escalated. She followed doctors on their rounds, trying to overhear updates. She attempted to slip into restricted areas, claiming she was family. Security escorted her out twice, but she always found her way back in. The breaking point came on the 7th day. I had just stepped out to call my mom when alarms started blaring from my dad's room. I rushed back to see Karen inside, her hands on the ventilator, trying to pull cords loose. "He wouldn't want this," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the hall. "He's a burden to the community." In seconds, nurses tackled her back, and security rushed in. My heart pounded as I shoved past them to check my dad, terrified that her insanity had cost him his life. Thankfully, the machines were intact. He was still breathing, but the chaos was far from over. Karen wasn't finished, and the hospital was about to become a war zone of screaming, officers, and restraints. The scene was pure chaos. Nurses scrambled, alarms blared, and my dad's monitor was beeping faster than my own heart could keep up. Karen thrashed in the middle of the ICU room, her voice sharp and unhinged. "You're wasting everyone's money," she shrieked, kicking at a rolling tray that clattered across the floor. "He should have been gone days ago. I'm the HOA president. I have a say." Security guards closed in, but Karen fought like her life depended on it. She clawed, screamed, and even tried to bite one of them. A nurse pulled me back into the hallway, afraid I might get caught in the chaos, but I couldn't look away. This wasn't just another HOA argument about trash cans. This was life or death. Within minutes, 2 hospital security officers pinned her arms. But Karen twisted and bucked, shouting curses at anyone who came close. "I'll sue this hospital. You can't keep me out." He signed community agreements. Community agreements. The words were nonsense, but the rage in her eyes was real. Then the police arrived. 2 officers stormed down the corridor, their radios crackling, hands already on their belts. Relief washed over me as they stepped into the room. "Step back. Step back now," one of them ordered. Karen froze for a moment, then tried a new tactic. Fake tears. "You don't understand," she wailed. "I'm trying to do what's best for everyone. That man is wasting resources. He doesn't deserve." "Ma'am, you need to stop talking and comply," the officer cut her off. His voice was calm but firm, the kind of tone that brooked no argument. When she refused to stand down, the officers moved fast. In one swift motion, they grabbed her arms, spun her around, and cuffed her. The sound of metal clicking shut was like music. Karen shrieked again, her voice echoing through the sterile halls. "You can't arrest me. I'm in charge here. I'm in charge." But she wasn't. For the first time since this nightmare began, someone had finally put a stop to her madness. As the officers hauled her out of the ICU, patients peeked from their rooms, whispering. Nurses exchanged exhausted looks of relief. I stepped back into my dad's room, my hands trembling as I checked the machines. Still running, still steady. My dad was safe for now. But the damage was done. Our family's privacy had been shattered. Our trust in the hospital's security shaken. And Karen's obsession exposed for all to see. Yet, part of me knew people like her don't just quit. And sure enough, even in handcuffs, she had one last move left to play. As Karen was dragged through the ICU hall, she didn't go quietly. Her voice carried like a banshee's wail, echoing off the sterile walls. "You'll regret this. He doesn't belong here. I'll take this all the way to court." The police officers didn't flinch. They walked her straight through the lobby, past stunned families, until the automatic doors swallowed her screams into the night. Only then did the ICU seem to exhale. The alarms stopped, the nurses regrouped, and my dad's room returned to its steady rhythm of beeps. But I couldn't shake the anger. This wasn't just a neighbor gone too far. She had crossed into something darker, something criminal. The officers came back to take our statements. One of them, a tall man with tired eyes, shook his head. "I've seen some wild things in this job," he said. "But I've never seen someone try to interfere with life support over community rules." It was absurd, but it was also terrifying. If security hadn't responded in time, my dad could have died. We pressed charges that night. The hospital did, too. Trespassing, disorderly conduct, attempted interference with medical equipment. It all stacked up. Karen was booked and spent the night in jail. The next morning, she was barred from entering the hospital altogether. Still, the fallout reached beyond those hospital walls. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People who once tolerated Karen's petty HOA crusades now saw her for what she really was. Some were horrified. Others were secretly relieved to see her finally face consequences. At the next HOA meeting, yes, she actually tried to call one from her lawyer's office. Half the board resigned. Residents petitioned to have her removed permanently. Within weeks, Karen was out, stripped of her HOA power, left with nothing but court dates and legal bills. For my family, the ordeal left scars. We couldn't unsee the moment she lunged for those machines, or the way she screamed about community resources, like my dad's life was a lawn ornament. But there was a silver lining. Neighbors we barely knew came forward to support us. Meals showed up at our door. Cards piled in. People stopped treating the HOA like an untouchable empire and started questioning how much power one person should ever have. And my dad, after weeks in the ICU, he pulled through. Slowly, steadily, he regained his strength. When he finally came home, he sat in his favorite chair on the porch, looked across the street at Karen's now empty house, and shook his head. "All that fuss," he said quietly. "Just because I parked my truck the wrong way." Sometimes the people who crave power the most are the ones least qualified to have it. And sometimes justice doesn't just come from the courts. It comes from a community finally standing up to say enough. If you enjoyed this wild story, make sure to smash that like button. Drop a comment below with what you think about this insane HOA Karen. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next crazy story. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new episode drops.